Welcome to the Journal podcast from the Chartered Insurance Institute, a place for thought-provoking discussion from the world of insurance and beyond. I'm Tim Hurst, Social Media and Production Manager at the Chartered Insurance Institute. In this episode, as part of Chartered Week 2026, we're diving into what it means to be chartered, not just as a status, but as a commitment to professionalism, integrity, putting customers first. We'll be talking about the real impact chartered status has on firms, their culture, their customer relationships, and the trust they build. We'll also explore how the chartered community can help elevate the wider profession and what inspiring professionals should know if they're considering the journey themselves. Joining me on the podcast today is Tim Brangwyn, Group Managing Director at Islands Insurance, and Neil McCarthy, Managing Director at MPR Underwriting Limited. Well, thank you both for joining me on the podcast today. To begin with, could you tell me a bit about yourself and your chartered firm? Neil, if we can come to you first.
Yeah, my name's Neil McCarthy. I've been in the industry for over 30 years. So I began in the early 90s as a trainee at Royal Insurance as it was then. And I think a big part of what attracted me to the industry in the first place was the professional qualifications route. So that ties in nicely with what we're talking about today. And I did that fairly quickly. And that was an important part of career journey for me. I stayed at the Royal until 96 when I joined Chubb Insurance, where I was for over 20 years. Switched disciplines to director and officers liability, financial lines. And in 2016, an ill-fated acquisition threw an opportunity our way to create an MGA called MPR Management and Professional Risks almost 10 years ago, which has flown by. And we built a really nice business, 14 of us, financial lines MGA, focused on service, technical excellence and really high service standards, supported by high-quality products. So this really ties into the chartered narrative, and that was a natural sort of segue and ambition of ours to seek professional accreditation at some point in the life cycle. So we were lucky enough to do that 5 years ago. So we're enjoying it. It's good. It's different from big corporate, and I think everybody who's been part of what we've done has found it a refreshing change from the life that most of us had before in what was then Chubb Insurance.
How about yourself, Tim? Could you fill us in about you and your firm?
Yeah, of course. Nice to meet you, Tim. Similar length of experience, I guess, to Neil, but slightly different path. About 40 years in the industry, 15 of those as an underwriter, mostly liability business. 15 years as a broker in a owner-managed firms, corporate insurance, and then 5 years or so in an MGA before I came here, which is a broker and an MGA. My interest in all of these things and in professional development was largely sparked by independent insurance, a name that probably most people won't remember now, but was a big advocate of professional development. To the point where if you weren't actively studying and progressing with your exams, you weren't going to progress in the business terribly quickly. So that captured my imagination. I wasn't a very good academic at school. I left early. So this was a route not just to achieving exams in the roles that I was in and the industry that I was in, but also then as a gateway to further study later in my working life as well. So that's been a real springboard for me. And therefore, I guess we're all partly products of our own experience, and you push the messages that you've learned and feel have value. And that's some of what I've brought to businesses that then I've gone on to manage.
Right, that's wonderful. And staying with you, Tim, thinking back to when your firm first achieved charter status, what did that moment represent in terms of your business and the commitment displayed to your customers?
So this business is based in the Channel Islands and operates exclusively in the Channel Islands across all of them. I've been here for a little under 4 years now. It's a very different market in some respects, but broadly similar to the UK. And the journey that we started on was one of primarily geared to its highly competitive recruitment market here. And I think all of us in the industry have challenges attracting and retaining younger people. And I'm a great believer, again, perhaps informed by my experience in the subsequent places that I worked, that if you want to deliver excellent customer service for your clients, you need happy, motivated and skilled people to do it. So we systematically set out on a journey over the first sort of 3 years of my time here. And then the pinnacle of that last year was being awarded the chartered broker status. And we're the only broker across all of the Channel Islands to have that. So when I look at how that journey is translated in terms of people studying and so on, last year 20 of my colleagues secured professional qualifications, and we now have 46 that are actively studying. So we've gone over 3 years from 12% of our employee count to 25% that are actively studying. So I think that's a huge achievement. I think not only is it an achievement for customers, talk more about that, but it's also becoming a real boon for our recruitment policy as a place for people, younger people, to come and start and forge and develop a career. And that's a huge source of competitive advantage, as well as obviously being for the benefit of our customers. So we were delighted. In fact, we closed early on the bank holiday Friday, shortly after we were awarded that, to mark the occasion. And we will continue to do that as we celebrate anniversaries going forward.
And Neil, thinking back to those sort of 5 years ago when your firm got chartered, how was that for you and your customers?
I mean, it was a major milestone for us because this is a verification. It's not a claim. So it's the CII saying publicly, declaring that this is a firm that maintains certain standards and behaviours and has a long-term commitment to certain key characteristics and behaviours and things like CPD and, the ethical framework that we have to adhere to. And it's something that you don't get given once. You have to continue to comply with these very high standards. So for us, it was that public declaration of this is a firm that takes ethics and continuous professional development very seriously. And it's a badge of honour in simple terms. In our sector, there are very few MGAs that have the accreditations. So it's a massive competitive differentiator for us. And it tells our brokers and ultimately the customers that our levels of professionalism, our governance and underwriting standards in our case are amongst the best in the industry. So it's that independent verification that I think is really important for us. And we lead with this. If you land on our website, you'll see the crest is there because to us that really matters in a fairly homogenized market where it's kind of hard to differentiate. This really sets us apart in my view. And it gives clients and brokers a real clear reason to choose us.
Fantastic. And, continuing on from what you're saying there, do you really feel that having that chartered status, whether it be an individual or a firm, does distinguish you from others within the profession? Especially like you're saying, there's not many MGAs out there with a chartered status, despite that being one of the more recent ones, still quite a new title, but interesting that you're saying that there's not a lot of picked it up, but you have. Does that distinguish yourselves as a place that has professionalism and more trustworthiness than others? Or going back to what Tim says, do you think that it's a good indicator for people who are looking for employment as somewhere that they can develop and grow?
Yeah, I mean, it does a number of things for us. I think it broadcasts the standards that we aspire to, and it's proven competence. It's not assumed competence. So it's, like I say, it's not us saying, oh, we've got 200 years of experience, which we have, but that in and of itself counts for something. But to have that independently verified professional accreditation sort of, I think, elevates us a little bit. Certainly does in my view, and this is why this was so important to me on a personal level, because it measures us against a national benchmark. So it's sort of saying, well, this firm has reached these certain metrics and these certain criteria, and we're bound by an enforceable code of ethics. So if we break that or we can't annually attest to that, then we lose the accreditation. So it kind of keeps you honest, it keeps you on your toes. It makes you maintain that focus on that continuing professional development for the staff. And that will manifest itself in the delivery of what we hope is first-class service and strongly differentiated service. I mean, you'll see through the MGA surveys, we're consistently in the top 2 performing MGAs in service competence across a 6-year period. So I think that ties in really strongly with the accreditation that we've got from the CII, because it sort of broadcasts that competence and that professionalism and that willingness to continue to develop and improve and differentiate between us. And like I say, there's a lot of markets doing what we do, but I strongly believe that the accreditation and what we had to do to get that broadcasts a lot about what we do as a business and what our core brand belief. That sounds a bit cheesy, but that's true. This goes all the way back to when we sat down and we created the brand. Who are we and what do we want to be? And that professionalism and that technical competence was really central to that. And that's built into the brand. And I think this lines itself up really well with who we are and what we aspire to be. But if the client or a broker asks the question, can I trust this person or this firm to act professionally, competently and ethically, then I think it's a strong, credible yes by virtue of the chartered status.
Anything you want to add there, Tim, from your perspective as a chartered broker?
I'd certainly underline the things that Neil said, particularly around the reinforcement and demonstration of our business values. Absolutely ties into that. And as Neil said, it keeps us honest as well, that it's not a short-term, secure a plaque on a wall, but it's a long-term commitment and something you have to keep working on, and that's healthy. I think perhaps the bit that I'd add is, I think at an individual level, it ties into what I've just said, but it's a shift from a sort of passing exams mindset into more of a lifelong learning and curiosity mindset. And I think that's incredibly healthy, not just for the insurance side of things. Those would be similar values that people like in the IOD would expect of director positions and so on. So I think it's a fundamental kind of way of being and a shift towards that. And I'm not sure that I buy into some of the more doom and gloom interpretations of AI, but personally, I'm in no doubt that technology and other technologies are going to transform jobs over the coming years. And there'll be all sorts of benefits to that. I think that automating routine, low value, dull jobs should be welcomed and not be a threat. But I think they'll be welcomed and not be a threat if we have colleagues who are able to deal with that and to continue to learn and develop, learn new skills, be curious, use the tools that are available to them in all sorts of creative and innovative ways. So I come again then back to what's at the heart of this for me. Yes, nice to have the award and the recognition for the hard yards, but actually to provide that training ground and nurturing ground in which people can continue to develop over the long term. And, let's be honest as well, I suspect most of our younger colleagues are going to be working longer than I expected to at a similar kind of age and face some challenges that we didn't face. So I think all of these things play into that. And long may it continue that, to a decent degree anyway, we remain a people business rather than an automated business. And I'd echo Neil's point about commoditization, that this also helps to stand in that tide with a flagpole that says, it's not all about the same product delivered the same way, delivered digitally. People can make a difference, especially skilled and motivated ones.
Brilliant. So how do you see chartered status influencing customer confidence or shaping the way customers perceive your service?
Yeah, so that sort of trend of commoditization, I think, dulls people to trying to understand the nuances and what separates good from bad. And we've all seen examples of that, particularly when it comes to claims and people not being clear on what it was that they'd actually bought and what they'd signed up to. So I'd like to see a bit more education of the buying public, whether those are businesses or people, on what chartered means. I point more towards recruitment and recognition within our industry than perhaps outside at the moment. Most people know what a chartered accountant is, for example. Most people know what a qualified lawyer is. I'm not sure that people distinguish an insurance practitioner in quite the same way yet, but I certainly hope that they will do, and I'd like to play our part in that too. I'd like to see BIBA and the MGAA and other industry bodies getting more squarely behind promoting chartered alongside the CII.
Interesting view. Neil, anything from your point of view as a chartered underwriting agent?
Yeah, I think it's an immediate reference point for us, and it signals credibility and competence. Most of our customers don't have the sort of technical knowledge to evaluate whether we're good underwriters or bad underwriters or how we do it. But what they can recognise is that independent marker of expertise, which is the charters. I guess it's hard for me to anticipate how much a client would value that, but I would. So the first thing I saw when I landed on somebody's website was the professional accreditation. As a mark of competence, I would have more confidence in that firm personally. I mean, that's maybe just me, but it kind of gives a little bit of a shorthand for sort of saying, well, this firm meets these exceptionally high standards that we set. And they are. I mean, this is not an easy thing to get. And I think, we should stress that. It's a rigorous process, and maybe that's a factor who can put people off, but you need to commit to this and you need to go into it with 100% enthusiasm, because it's not an easy accreditation to secure. So to me, I think that effect on perception will be that customers feel they're in the hands of professionals and differentiates us in that crowded market that we talked about earlier on. So it's a clear point of differentiation for me. And if somebody was to say, why should I trust this firm more than others? Why should I believe the underwriting is more reliable? And why should I place my risks here? Because ultimately that's what it's all about. This is why we exist. Then I think customers will hopefully see the chartered status as a mark of a high caliber, dependable choice of insurer.
I guess if I just add to Neil's theme, we've only been awarded the status for 12 months now, so it's early days. I guess we'll do our part in educating customers about why we're different. But if I follow my own sort of school of thought through, I guess over time, and hopefully more of our colleagues become even more skilled and professional, we attract even more to it, then that in itself should also see us continue to grow and deliver the kind of service that the industry should be proud of as well.
Fantastic. So, Tim, from your perspective, being chartered, especially because it is only quite new for you, it's been more of a focus on that sort of internal development rather than an external relationship building exercise. It's that thing if you've got chartered, but obviously, as Neil said, it's not just about getting it once, you've got to renew it every year. And so to ensure that you're maintaining that, you're looking at, well, let's make sure that we develop our people so that we can retain this standard that we've now obtained.
Yes and no, I think, Tim. It's early days, 12 months or so. And I guess many buyers can't actually very easily differentiate one provider from another. And it's a trust purchase, isn't it? So you have to be able to tell that story over time to demonstrate the messages that we're giving about, the hard yards that we go through, the continual support, the continual professional development, the recognition from the industry at large, all of those sorts of things. I think for the buying public, whether they're individual businesses, to understand what that actually means. So I don't think it's a quick fix. And actually, in many ways, I'm glad that it isn't. Because if all that this amounted to was sticking a logo on the bottom of an email or a piece of paper or a plaque on the wall, actually that would devalue it. So I recognise it's going to take time. I guess my, not whole focus, but I think the right place to start is with our own people, and you build it from there.
That's great. Some really good insight there. Neil, coming to you, do you have any examples where you found being chartered has made a difference in your relationships or outcomes you've been able to deliver?
I think you probably have to ask the brokers. I mean, what I would say is, I think if you chart our development over the past 6-7 years, how much of that has come from, in a very difficult market where there was a lot of displacement, were we a market of choice because we were chartered? I think it certainly helped. And if you look at the volume and the nature of our relationships since 2020, and, they've grown exponentially, and we've got ourselves to a really good place. I think what it did for us gave us more confidence, and we lead with this, and we lead with the service capability amongst other things, but this is a really important part of our pitch. So I don't think I can answer that directly, but I would definitely say that this has shaped a lot of our customers' views of who we are and what we do.
That's great. And I appreciate that with the market you're in, it's not as simple as, say, getting a 5-star Trustpilot review, is it? So I appreciate your honesty and candid nature there. Just sort of thinking about chartered as a whole, so not just about corporate chartered as we've sort of been focusing on a little bit, but, individual chartered status, looking at those sort of qualification levels. And I know you've both talked about how being chartered firms, you've really sort of put a focus on developing your staff. But how could more firms and more individuals becoming chartered help raise standards and that public trust across the profession, do you think? Should we stay with you, Neil?
Yeah, I think it creates peer pressure in a really positive way as well, because when more individuals and firms achieve chartered status, then A, the entire profession benefits, but also B, it puts a bit more pressure on those that aren't to maybe have a look and have a think about whether they should or what changes they can make. So it acts as a catalyst, I think, for that higher technical competence capability, and also the ethics piece ties in very well with treating customers fairly, which is obviously a big part of certainly the industry, but also our firm's DNA. It leads to a more trusted marketplace, I would say. But it lifts the expectations for everybody, so all market participants, whether it's individuals, firms or customers. I think that positive peer pressure, as I say, will lift the entire industry and embed like this, maybe a stronger ethical foundation across the market. So, and it's the only one as well, and that's the thing that's important. So it's not like where there's multiple accreditations and qualifications that can confuse the situation. There is one industry body, there is one charter status, and I think that really helps because that's a single metric that people can judge organisations and individuals by. I wish more people did it, and I don't know what the answer to that is directly, but I think for us, it's a really important part of what we do. And I think what I would say, again, I think it's raised our standards. I think it elevates us to a higher level, and it processes our attitude, our outlook is all focused around trying to be the best of what we do, and that chartered accreditation really supports that. So it's kind of now woven into the fabric of the organisation, and it sort of self-perpetuates and becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy in that you want to be the best, so your behaviours will raise, and then once you've got it, you don't want to lose it, so you maintain those standards. So I think the fact that it's that widely recognised symbol of professional quality and integrity really helps raise standards and maintain them.
Great. Tim, anything you'd like to add on to that?
Again, absolutely echo what Neil has said about the integrity and the continual improvement and raising of a benchmark. And when you have some external benchmarks alongside your own internal ones, it helps to drive that virtuous circle. And Neil's absolutely right. For us as well, it goes to the kind of heart of the business. Businesses are set up and run for all sorts of different reasons and motivations. One of the things that I love about this business is it's got a very balanced set of values and objectives, and those include community, support in a very small market relatively. You're known and visible as an organisation in a way that few are in the UK and larger markets. I absolutely want to embrace technology to enrich jobs. We're absolutely a business, not a charity. But I'm not looking for technology to replace jobs. It's not about downsizing. It's not about some of those drivers that are sort of more purely financial. So that then puts people firmly at the centre of everything that we do. I've echoed that theme throughout our conversation this morning already. So that's where this is for me at the moment of the greatest value. And we'll see over the years ahead whether the theory is demonstrated in practice, that when you keep and develop and continue to grow, so too will the business as well.
Fantastic. And, staying with you, Tim, a common theme we seem to have on this is talking about that sort of development of people. And if you had any advice for anyone who's aspiring to be an insurance professional, taking it to chartered potentially, what would you sort of say to them?
Just do it. There's always a reason. There's always other stuff that can get in the way, but just do it. I think for a variety of reasons. One, there's value in continuing to learn. There's financial value, there's intellectual value, there's keeping the grey matter working and adding skills and longevity to your career. And I think more people are going to be working longer and in more varied roles. So I think those things are important. Personally, as well, I said at the top of the meeting, what it also did was provide a gateway, securing the ACII and a chartered broker, getting that under my belt relatively early. And I'm grateful to the encouragement and support of Independent at the time for pushing my hand on it as an early 20-something who could have found all sorts of bad reasons not to be doing it. Then gave me a platform to go on and do further postgrad study. And I'm not sure that I'd done that without getting that milestone early on. So none of us know what's around the corner. None of us know everything by a long chalk. So I think I'd encourage that continual curiosity and desire to want to expand your knowledge and your horizon.
Fantastic. What about you, Neil? Any advice you'd give to aspiring professionals out there?
Yeah, I treat it as an investment. Don't see it as a qualification or a box to tick. It's something that will serve you well in your career, and probably echo what Tim says, definitely do it early because life gets in the way. So when you've got the opportunity, and that's my message to our apprentices, is just get it under your belt. That's the priority. If you need time off work to do it, take it, get that done, because we all know when you mature and life moves on, things get in the way and it's much more difficult to go back to it. So my advice will be definitely get it done early and treat it as an investment. Don't just see it as something you need to get off your desk, because that's the wrong way to look at it. So build a technical foundation, study, get hands-on experience, speak to mentors and learn from what they've done and listen and understand how this can make a difference, not just to you, but also to your organisation. Because as I said before, it raises the standards of those around you. So it's kind of a mindset thing. I think once you convince yourself that this is the right thing to do for you and for your career and see it as that investment as opposed to a qualification, then you're in a pretty good place to start. But it elevates people around you as well. It's not just you. I think if people are sat next to somebody who's doing it and enjoying it as well, then, you might just encourage them to do the same sort of thing.
I'd absolutely underline that, with our own experience over just 3 years, to have 12% of 180 or so people studying 3 years ago to now a quarter actively studying. That's not down to any sort of financial incentive campaign or heavy-handed management. That's in large part due to the inspiration of other people that have been passing exams and studying and sharing their knowledge and encouragement, which makes it a very healthy environment to be part of as well, I think.
Fantastic. So this episode will be going out in Chartered Week, which is obviously a celebration of chartered firms, individuals and so on. What more do you think that the profession and even, like you say, other bodies aside from the CII, but also the CII, could do to promote or even support individuals or firms working towards chartered status?
I've already mentioned, I think there are some other industry groups that could do a bit more to raise awareness and get behind it, as well as those that are chartered already. And I know that this is not easy, and I know the CII does a lot in this field as well. Perhaps we don't do enough on the ground as individual firms to support it. Maybe that's an initiative that we should look at. But what I mean by all of that is, how do we work with colleges, perhaps schools, but certainly colleges, to raise the value and importance of the insurance industry as a potential career? I've had 40 years or so in it. Yeah, sure. There are bits of it that I've enjoyed more than other bits of it, but it's been rewarding. Otherwise, I wouldn't have carried on doing it. I've been lucky enough to work with some really interesting people and learn a lot of things along the way. I've done a number of different roles that have exposed me to things I wouldn't have expected to have been exposed to at 16, 17 years old when I started. It's been very rewarding. It wasn't seen by me at that point as a potential. It was an accident. Many people that you speak to will always say that, oh, well, I fell into insurance. How is it that we can better promote all of that variety and opportunity to people so that it's not seen as something that I accidentally fell into, quite in the way that it has been throughout my career?
Words of wisdom there, Tim. And Neil, anything you'd like to add to that?
I think, to the CII's credit, I think he does a very good job, Tim. I think Phil Turner in particular is a fabulous resource. So anyone who's not connected with Phil in our region industry should do, because he's a terrific advocate of the CII and really great reference point. So they do a really good job, but there's no pressure to qualify. I think that's the thing that I've learned over the years, is that it seems quite passive in terms of organisations' willingness to put people through this and hold people's feet to the fire. So that could change. There are organisations that do. It's great to hear what Tim's doing. There are other organisations, brokers, that put some terrific programmes together. A lot of the brokers that we talk to have got some really bright young talent and are really investing in that process. That's great to see. But make the journey clearer, make it more actively encouraged, like I say, but provide structured support as well. Fund study programs, make sure you give protected study time. So 2 days a month or whatever it might be, that you are absolutely exclusively doing study time, or maybe more, however much an individual needs. I mean, people are different. So candidates feel more supported whilst they're doing it. But I guess it's down to us to sort of embed that charter progression into the talent frameworks that exist, and just make sure that we support the process and recognise that it's important and that it matters and it's valuable, because it is. So the CII examination accreditation pathway is all the way up to charter. It's a gold standard, and I just think I can't see an argument against not doing it. I just don't see that there's enough industry pressure to put them on that pathway and provide support. A lot of it seems to be get in, do this job, go home, and rather than sort of saying, okay, well, 25% or 20% of your week is that structured learning, structured support, protected study time, so that candidates feel that it's a really important part of their role to get professionally qualified. Take nothing away from the CII. Phil in particular does a great job. I just think it won't happen overnight, but I can see signs that it's happening, and I think you end up with a better business and better staff. It's as simple as that.
Neil's sort of prompted me, because alongside the phrase that I fell into insurance is and I wish we were taken more seriously as a profession. Well, that's in our hands. That's not just the CII's or any single firm or association's hands. That's a collective effort. And I think Neil's right. And in fact, I said it at the beginning, had it not been for independent, because money talks when you're young in your career, it all matters when you're trying to set your life up. And they were very clear. If you want to progress, if you want to be promoted, if you want to be considered for the next step or for pay rises and so on, then you need to study. It's an expectation. So I think probably we've all got some stuff to take from that in the right way. We certainly increase salaries on passing the professional qualifications as a matter of course, as well as providing the study support. And when people join us, it's made very clear that it's an expectation at the very minimum to achieve the cert, CII, if you're in the insurance side of the businesses. Maybe we can all just look at ourselves and ask again, are we doing enough for the industry as much as for our own businesses?
Really great insight from you both. Thank you both, Neil and Tim. Really appreciate your time today for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
You're welcome. Anytime.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Journal Podcast. You can find useful links in the show notes and related articles on the Journal website, along with further podcasts. Please like, review, and subscribe. Until next time, goodbye.